Um estilo de vida, todos nós estamos ligados mais.
Portanto, hoje fiz a aula de yoga tibetano, fiz agora um workshop de ervas e ontem assisti a algumas palestras online na plataforma híbrida deste ano do festival.
É um encontro de inovação, de novas experiências de muita gente, todos ligados ao ambiente, mas que no fundo acabam por se ligar todos com um fio condutor que é a sustentabilidade.
Azure é um projeto de impacto social que envolve ONGs e associações e municípios na recolha de lixo em praias. Ao mesmo tempo também fazemos um programa de sensibilização em escolas e com o plástico que recolhemos fazemos sapatilhas e sandálias, tudo produzido localmente. Basicamente é um projeto então de impacto social com uma forte componente de sustentabilidade.
Conhecemos outras pessoas que têm um bocado mesmo a mentalidade que nós, economia circular, parcerias locais, todos conseguimos fazer um pouco mais para tornar a nossa indústria, mesmo que seja pequena, um pouco mais sustentável.
É uma festa para os sentidos, é uma partilha de conhecimento, é uma partilha de boas práticas, é uma fonte de inspiração para, individualmente e em comunidade, construirmos, digamos, um futuro melhor.
Um encontro num sítio fantástico, a falar de sustentabilidade de diversas maneiras.
A maneira como raciocinamos, a multitasking que existe hoje em dia é completamente diferente do cérebro há 100 anos atrás.
Há uma dimensão física presencial que é obviamente importante para um contacto mais direto com os projetos, com as ideias que aqui vão ser debatidas.
Faz todo sentido estarmos aqui e partilharmos desta filosofia de vida comum.
Mas ao mesmo tempo há também uma dimensão digital que nos aproxima a todos e que,
Tendendo à funcionalidade e potencialidade da plataforma que utilizamos,
o formato digital em complementaridade com o presencial potencia imenso a experiência das pessoas.
o que sinto é que vamos poder fazer um upgrade.
Garantir que as pessoas em casa tenham uma experiência muito próxima da realidade.
É possível que as marcas ativem, criem experiências e muitas das experiências com emoção.
Nós estamos a fazer parte da Digital Team.
A tecnologia está cá para ficar.
Nós temos um ecrã gigante na sala de capítulo, as pessoas podem estar todas fora, não estão lá fisicamente, mas estão os avatares. Portanto, é presencial, só não estão lá as pessoas em pessoa.
Para mim, se relaciona muito com a questão do mágico.
Nós podemos ter o Greenfest agora aqui e estar um Indo Maori com o seu telemóvel a ver lá no meio da selva, a seguir o Greenfest, a falar diretamente para o Greenfest. Quer dizer, isto é uma coisa impensável.
O que eu acredito é que neste momento é completamente híbrido, vai continuar a ser híbrido.
É muito mais difícil porque tudo é possível, não há nenhuma limitação a partir de agora.
E portanto nós no fundo temos N possibilidades, e as marcas têm, de passar a sua mensagem, os seus valores.
A partir de agora a lei digital tem que estar sempre presente, complementar.
É estar ao estar.
Aquelas que já vinham, eu acho que devem continuar a vir.
Hi, good morning. I would like to give you a warm welcome for the 4 brave women, green women, that you are going to share with us a lot of your experience and knowledge. So thanks a lot for joining us. Marta, it's not the first time that you are with us with Greenfest. Thanks. as well as Inês, and Alice and Nicole. Thanks a lot for joining. So the floor is yours.
Bom dia a todos. I will now start speaking in English because that's the language of the conversation that follows. Please let me start by saying how grateful I am to Greenfest. Let me thank Pedro Norton Matos that just introduced us to you, and particularly to João Mendes Reis that trusted me with the challenge of creating a panel with whatever guests I wish to invite. He gave me a topic, a lifestyle rather, that we have in common. We stabilized it, and that is at the core of this conversation today. We will talk about the rise of conscious consumption and the role played by consumers, companies, and governments. To discuss this topic, I handpicked 3 changemakers, women with whom I learn every day about the topic on their social media feeds, LinkedIn and Instagram. So let me share with you very practically their credentials. I'll start with you, Alice. I came across Alice on LinkedIn, where she shares her knowledge and experience about sustainability. And the way she does it is where the magic lies. She is insightful, punchy, and assertive, really giving one food for thought. She talks about sustainability is important in a way that makes it clear for the readers to understand the real deal. She's an international global leader on sustainability and social impact. She's an author, advisor, and speaker. She has an enviable CV when it comes to working with purpose and for a better world. And she's also the author of a book that I ordered prior to knowing that this challenge was presented to me, called The Sustainability Puzzle. Now I'll move to Inês. And to introduce to you Inês Costa, I'll start with a short story. A few years ago, I was working solely with my own project, Marta pelo Mundo, and I went to a conference about waste directed to a more corporate audience. After a panel talking about the wonders of recycling, I very timidly raised my hand, questioning the need to go beyond it. I got the impression that I was not being taken seriously. But then, to my surprise, Inês replied to my question in complete coherence with this message, proving to me that some government officials can actually walk their talk. So, sorry, Inês, to say it this way. I've been following her and learning from her feed on LinkedIn ever since. And this event that I just told you, happened way before Inês occupied the seat she's in today as Secretary of State for the Environment. And although Nicole has not joined us yet, I do hope that she joins us any moment now. I'll start by introducing, sorry, I just had a message from her. I'll start introducing Nicole Burns and show the importance of her work with the quote I just read today from Andrew Morlett, CEO at the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where he says biodiversity loss is a direct result of today's take, make, waste economy. To halt and reverse this loss, we need to transform the way we make and use products and grow our food. So as I introduce you to her, to Nicole, let me ask you if you ever tried to run a family of 4 producing the least waste possible. Well, I try every day, and it is an Herculean task. And yet Nicole does it with such grace and ease and shares her path step by step, and why it makes sense to be a conscious consumer with more than 130,000 other people. You can find her mostly on Instagram on the Casa Sem Lixo account, Home Without Waste, and she's the co-founder as well of Mercado Sem Lixo. And now, to kick off this conversation, let's take a minute to make sure we know what conscious consumerism is. Conscious consumption is when your buying practices are driven by a commitment to make purchasing decisions have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact. So if you are familiarized with the core concept of sustainability, you clearly understand the connection. Responsible consumption unlocks sustainability. But there is more. As a conscious consumer, you will think whether consumption is necessary at all. Once you decide to buy, you will look at who is providing the product and how the product impacts each environment touch in its creation and delivery. The way of buying phases out impulse buys and phases in the option for companies and products that create positive impact. It is about voting with our wallets. And what is amazing is that we can trace back these concepts to 1954, as at the time, economist James Buchanan stated that individual participation is paramount for the economy, and it is one of the purest forms of democracy. Even more interesting is that the concept above is prior to the one of throwaway living that was celebrated by Life magazine in 1955. And we have Nicole here, and I'm grateful. Thank you for joining us. I hope you listened to me introducing to you. And now I'm going to bring to the table the first topic to my guests. Now, climate change, the unfairness across production with value chains, South and North hemispheres inequalities, to name a few, are challenges that make us wonder, how will we make it? And so I ask you, is our consumption society the elephant in the room? How and will we make it in time to respond to the challenges we face as a species if consumption habits that characterize society as we know it don't change? Will consumers be willing to downgrade their lifestyle for the sake of the environment? So I'll start by alphabetic order. Alice, tell us your thoughts.
Okay, so I'm about to solve the million-dollar question. Thank you, Marta, also for this introduction and for this, setting the scene, which I think you did really well. Well, I mean, in your sentence, there were a few things, or in your question, there were a few things. One, to me, is you used the word downgrade. And I think the answer is yes, we'll definitely need to change our lifestyles. I think this is absolutely true. It might sound hard, it might sound like a sacrifice, but I think it won't be the moment we've understood what sustainability really means, because I think it's really about better rather than more, right? So, and also relating to that, I mean, we talk about consumption, and I think there is such a thing as sustainable consumption. To an extent, it's just going back to, the way we consumed a few decades ago. Yeah, I don't want anyone to go back into Stone Age, but I think that's part of that. So we can do it. We survived that, right? It's also looking a little bit at other countries, other parts of the globe, right? Because, it's very much a sort of rich country problem that we're consuming too much. So I think it's really this what needs to change is more this understanding that we're not saving the planet, we're saving ourselves, we're saving or safeguarding rather the planet's ability to continue to provide the services we need and we absolutely depend upon. Yeah. And so I would argue there is no such thing as sustainable consumerism, right? Because consumerism, by the very definition of the term, is all about more, is about deliberately producing things in a way so that they break, right? We can talk about planned obsolescence and all of this, but this is kind of crazy, yeah. And I think just a few decades ago, no right-minded, shoemaker, or sort of with a business sense would have deliberately produced something that doesn't work well, that's about to break. But this is what we're in right now, and I think this definitely will change and will have to change. But it will be an upgrade, actually. And I'll stop here because I'm sure other ladies have great things to say.
Wonderful. Ines?
Well, I do believe that consumption is one part of the elephant in the room, but we can't be looking at it solely on the side of the consumer, who is also a citizen, by the way. The fact is that mass production and disposal of products is still, for better or worse, the main basis of our economic engine, and it remains intrinsically linear. To extract the level of wealth that developed economies assume to need, and attempt to transform it beyond recycling is also always seen as a threat, Any change to that status quo is always seen as a threat. And having said that, it is also true that we need behavioral change among our citizens, and not only in how they consume, but also on how they value things and how they value behavior. So I don't necessarily believe, like Alice said, that. So accompanying Alice's thoughts that I don't believe that consuming less equals downgrading on our lifestyles. And a matter of fact, it's curious because even today I was reading an article about what changes in people's perceptions once in developed countries when they go from being poor to being affluent. And I think it would be interesting to share to you some things or some sentences of how people reacted to that. So that I'm going to quote here. So one person said, well, everything costs more when you're poor. Buying things in bulk is cheaper. But when you're poor, you're not buying a toothpaste multi-pack. It's too much upfront cost. So also when you're poor, you'll buy a $50 pair of boots every year. But when you have a financial cushion, you'll buy a $300 pair that lasts for 10 years. The difference in quality between cheap and middle range is often far larger than the difference between middle range and very expensive, even though the price gap is about the same or more. So that's what one person said. And another one said that how unfair the tax system is. So she said, my effective tax rate went down as I made more money, for example. And finally, one said that being wealthy means nothing if all you do is work nonstop to make more money. The real currency is time. Real wealth means having the time to enjoy life without worrying about money. So these are really good insights at how people's perceptive change once you get rid of the worrying of having to put bread on a table, of having to put your down payments for your rent, because it doesn't leave enough time for people to think about conscious consumer, about being conscious while consuming. So that's one issue. So what we need to figure out is how to break this cycle between inequality, overshooting our environmental limits, and what we conceive economic growth to be. In my personal view, I think that protecting the environment is combating social inequality. But we can't have, economists and industry going into a nervous breakdown every time we talk about shifting taxes from labor to resources and pollution. That cannot happen. So we need to find a way to break this cycle of things. That's my perspective.
And I think we'll get back to that perspective and to how we can shift that, because one very important thing that you said, Inês, and I think as a conscious consumer, because I consider myself one, that's what I learned, that I'm first of all a citizen and only then a consumer. And this shift was absolutely crucial in my life. And I think Nicole, in her answer, might tell us about that. Nicole, what is your view?
Yeah, my journey started when I was breastfeeding my little one baby. So I started thinking about how our style of life, our life was not right, So my journey started with that, rethinking the way we were consuming stuff. So I agree with Alice and I agree with Inês. We live in a very not fair world, but I also believe, because my journey started that as a mom, as someone who wants to build a possible future for my family, for my children, and for myself, and for the future generations. I believe that a lot of people can have to start in some point, So it's sad that we see ourselves as consumers, but it's the truth in a lot of countries. But we are not only that. I think right now one of the biggest challenges is that we have to look to our life, but if we think about rights
Nicole,
and
we're losing you.
what
We're losing you.
Oh, sorry.
With your
Are
connection.
you listening?
Yes, but we're losing you with your connection is very unstable.
Oh, hello. Are you listening now?
Mm-hmm.
Are you listening now? Okay. Well, I think we have to start at some point, and everybody is in living, you know, in a different story in a different country. So if choosing the way you consume is the point, is to start to think about sustainability and the possible future, okay. But once you start, you grow and you grow forward, you know, you I don't know, my English
Evolve.
is so bad.
You evolve.
You're fine.
Yes.
You're fine.
Yes.
You grow. Yeah.
You know, 5 years ago, if I heard what you said, I would be, oh my gosh, you know, I never thought about that. But today, 5 years later, it makes sense, you know. But unfortunately, most of the people never even thought about it, you know. Even if we think about the poor people, oh my gosh. So we have to really work together in all areas, you know, to maybe do something that can change the future we are building.
So taking what you're just saying and with what all of you said, we need to change and we need behavioral change. You ladies work with government policies, businesses, consumers. So we have 3 key stakeholders of the economy here, and you make the change every day. What have been the arguments and for messages to people to take home? What is driving change? What could you tell people for them to change that convinces them, to each of your audiences that are completely different?
Do you want me to start again because of the alphabet?
Why not? Why not?
Great. So, I mean, I guess what I'm all about actually linking, right? Government, consumers, companies, and then ideally also academia and arts. Yeah. So I really try to see this bigger picture, which is also what our book is all about, right? It's zooming out just before you zoom in so that you don't create more problems than you solve, right? So I think really it's about this cross-sectoral work, stepping out of your silos. And, you know, I've been doing a lot of that also, for example, with my work with the European Commission, but it's very hard. It's really, really hard. So I'm just saying, I'm coming from a perspective where I see the other sectors, right? But I do have a business background and I do work a lot with businesses. And in the end, with businesses, it's, you know, the business of business is business. That's very important. Yes, you have a lot of very inspired, motivated individuals working in these businesses, even at the very high level, at the top level, absolutely. But they are facing a broad range of different pressures, right? They might have pressures from stakeholders that ask them to not, you know, invest too much in sustainability, but you might have the opposite, right? Some oil firms have actually been facing pressure from shareholders to take the climate risk more seriously, right? So there's that. I think, so in the end, I mean, it comes down to, first of all, who is at the top of the business, but also very much what's the culture, right? And I do find it's often I mean, that's kind of obvious, right? In the business world, it's often the smaller companies, the family-run businesses that, of course, have more leeway, right? That are more sort of fully oriented towards the profit, the purpose, right? Purpose rather than just profit. They want to leave a legacy, yeah. And I also find often the more people progress in their career, the older they are, the more they question what they've been doing and whether it's really just all about money. So I think the point is you have to move from an idea of business ethics, which a lot of businesses have been, you know, flagging early on, which business schools have been teaching, which is all about limiting your pursuit of self-interest, so limiting growth, limiting business opportunities for the sake of others, to an understanding of sustainability that looks at opportunities. Someone calculated, so the UN calculated there's this $12 trillion business opportunity in achieving the SDGs. So there's an opportunity. Today, the most talented individuals want to work for good companies. They want to work for sustainable companies. They don't want to work for just any company. And this is a huge sort of business factor for businesses. Another thing is, of course, consumers, right? To an extent, and I'm sure we'll discuss it a bit more today, consumers are really demanding sustainable products. So there is actually a lot of positive pressure, and that in addition to all the risks that businesses are now recognizing, right? Risks relating to resources being finite, reputational risks relating to, destroying the environment, polluting rivers, etc., which a few decades ago were sort of, they might have gone unnoticed by most people, and at least, and if nothing else, they were not punished, right? And all of this is now, I think, changing, and businesses are very much aware of this. So the argument that you have to provide to businesses is what's in it for you. What's in it for you to be socially more sustainable, but also to limit your impact on the environment, of course. And one thing I hear businesses right now really talk about and think about is, well, I don't hear them thinking, of course, but I hear that's what they say they think about, is this new EU taxonomy regulation, right? Because they're realizing that stuff is happening and regulation is kicking in. And actually, a lot of businesses tell me, more or less in private, we want more regulation. We need more regulation, right? That gives us, basically, otherwise we have too many excuses. But the moment regulation is strict and you're going to enforce it, and also the moment there is a level playing field, we're going to do it. And again, I'll stop here because I could talk about this for hours, but I think, I'd like to hear from the others as well.
Inês, we need more regulation. What you had to say to this?
No, I mean, well, going back to, I'll go to that, but getting back to your original question.
Yes, of course.
About the arguments. Well, my audience, I think, comes from various areas and backgrounds. Of course, one tends to attract like-minded individuals. I mean, it's true that that's what happens in networks and social media for sure, and professional media as well. That is good on one hand, because usually we are talking to professionals, at least in my case, that I'm more active on LinkedIn. I talk to professionals, young and older, that are sort of diving into learning about what they can do to promote changes within their business or within their lifestyle, or they are searching for new areas of opportunity to which they can connect, and that is good. I mean, there isn't one argument that convinces them. I just try to bring in ideas, examples, opportunities that show them that a different approach is possible. Sometimes I personally I feel the need to reflect and to clarify a particular topic that relates either to my background or to the position I'm currently in. And for that, I write, longer articles that I share in my professional network. And those usually are more related to the changes that we need to do to our social architecture and our economical architecture. So they are a little bit more far-reaching. And I don't get a lot of comments on those, but I get a lot of reactions from people, which is, I guess, good. At least it is intended to place, the question within their minds and maybe it is a precursor for them to go out and learn more about that particular topic. And that's, for me, is already a win. With government, which is my other audience, is a little bit trickier, but not because of people being insensitive to environmental issues or to environmental challenges. It's not because of that. It's true that some are more sensitive than others, but we are a diverse community. I mean, it's bound to have that differences across the population. But I think it's trickier because each area in government frames their value in a particular way. So priorities are from area to area. Priorities are very much straightforward, imprinted into their DNA. So when things clash, the dialogue gets tough, because my value frame, it's not the same one as it's not the same value frame of the person that is opposite me. So it is an issue of to be empathetic, to practice empathy, to practice compassion in a certain way, in order to be able to reach a compromise. And some people develop these skills more easily than others. I will get that, but I think it's an ongoing process. And I see people within government services, government institutions, as part of government cabinets as well, that I believe that made a very interesting evolution since we began in 2015, late 2015, and that is a very good feeling to have. I'm not saying that we have all problems solved. We don't. But I think that the change is happening. I wish it could be quicker, but at least it's happening. And that is an encouraging thing. So I'll stop here, perhaps.
Thank you for that. It's amazing to indeed how empathy can change so much in everyday lives. Nicole, what is your view? What are not so much what is your view? What are the arguments that convince people towards change in your audience that are consumers, in fact?
Mm-hmm. Well, my most of my followers are moms, are women. So they're really looking forward to build a better world. But I think we are right now in a point of history that we must change our dreams and our the way we look for the future. I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to have this, I want to have that, because it doesn't make any sense when we since we don't know if we're gonna have air to breathe. So changing to experiences. This is what I'm trying to talk about, and there but again, going back to what Inés said, I have everything. I don't need to worry about having a house to live and food to eat. Once I was talking in a room with a lot of people, and someone said, "Well, you think it's cool to buy used clothes, but what can I say to someone that never had a chance to buy a new clothes, and now they have the money to do it?" And I go and say, no, you have to buy used. No, I did that all my life. Now I have the chance to do it. So it's hard when you talk to, it's different. We live in a very unfair world, and society. So, but I think we have now achieve that point where my public, to my followers, I'm really looking forward to do that. I'm gonna say something of my family experiences. My children, they really want to go to Disney World, you know. They want to do that, and we're always talking, oh my gosh, you know, how this is all wrong, you know. That's they dream, this is their dream, you know. How can I tell them that you know, this is not this is not right? Is it right, you know? So it's a really sensitive point. Empathy is really good in how to talk to people, you know. I follow some financial ladies that talk to empower women, you know, and all they say, oh, you have to work so you can buy this and you can have all these experiences and travel the whole world, you know. But now how can we do that, you know? We don't have so this is my main desafio, how can I say that? My main challenge now, you know, my personal challenge with my family and my challenge with the women that I talk every day.
Can I pick up, Marta?
Yeah, no. Yeah, go on.
No, because I think the whole emotional aspect is just so important, right? And I think both Nicole and Ines have you know, referred to it. And I think even in the sort of hard-nosed business world, in the end, it's this mix of evidence, of hard numbers, and of emotions. And I mean, I see that, you know, because we started off talking about LinkedIn and followers and all of that. So I think this is what makes people work. And I mean, I leave it to Ines to speak about government, but in my experience, that sort of helps there too, right? We all want stories, and yeah, sort of this compassion, this. I kind of understand you, yeah. I don't blame you, and I mean, you know, we have the same challenges our own family, and then, you know, who am I to say to my children don't travel when until I was, I don't know, 25, 30, just all about traveling all over the world, right? And you can justify that from a social understanding, social justice point of view, which is also sustainability, but clearly from a green environmental point of view, you can't. And I also, I mean, because the question was also like, how do we make other people understand, how we tie them in, right? And one example I'd like to give is from the work with my co-author, Claudia Winkler. She comes from a very much sort of hardcore business executive background. And for the longest time, she thought working for businesses, and she says this publicly, so I can also quote that, she said she thought she was doing something positive, basically helping one company making more money. It was telecommunications, so connecting people, right? And she didn't question that much until a few years ago. And since then, she's, you know, totally changed, become a social impact or impact entrepreneur. And me, on the other hand, I've been working, I have a business background, but then for the longest time I worked in sustainability. So I was so much in my bubble that I think I found it very hard to not blame people who had not made this experience, who had not seen sort of, you know, poverty, who had not seen people's very real struggles, who had just maybe not much of an understanding of, you know, environmental connections, the value of nature and all of that. And so this collaboration, because we're so complementary, I think worked really well. Because, and what we really understood, what I really learned is you have to pick people up where they are. You really need to put yourselves into their shoes, and not everybody can be that for everyone. But that's of course another reason why collaboration is so important, right? And then speaking the right language, and also in a way conveying optimism, because if you tell people the world is doomed, right, and it's all apocalypse, and a lot of people will just switch off, right? But if you talk about the possibilities without without sort of, you know, sugarcoating. Thank you. You know, then I think you're on the right track. Yeah. Sorry, I just came in here because I thought that was kind of something I wanted to share.
No, that really added value, Alice. And I'm going to ask you very specifically, have you met in your work companies that have systemically changed their value chain? to a more sustainable approach that shifted, and why did that happen? Can you share examples?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I mean, a lot of companies these days are very much built around social value, environmental value, yeah? But we're talking about companies that really changed what they were doing and how they were doing it. And I think one of the most powerful examples is Ørsted. Ørsted, formerly Dong, is a large Danish energy company. It used to be all about coal and oil and gas, was growing investments in oil and gas. And now they're 90-something% about renewables, right? So they've sold all their assets. And some people would say, well, that the assets still exist, but the company has really changed the way it does business. And more is also emerging about how the company's done it and why the company's done it. I think one key factor was the CEO, who just really wanted that and who really got it, who really understood that from a strategic point of view, it was going to be in the business interest of the company to divest from fossil fuels. Yeah, and I think other companies are also realizing now, again, without going too much into detail, but I mean this balance of the balance is tipping when it comes to fossil fuel investments, right? New fossil fuel investments, so oil, coal, and gas, don't make financial sense anymore. Yeah, there are reasons, of course, for countries or regions dependent on them. They need some support. There's this Just Transition Fund to take off some of the edge of this change. But the edge is now in business interest, and Ørsted, yeah, this Danish company, they just recognized it. So I think it was that. It was this insight. With other companies, I think. I think Patagonia is a great one, but Patagonia, again, very committed founder, owner. I mean, they've always been like that, and I mean, they really get the whole circular economy thinking as well, right? The reuse, redesign, remanufacture, and actually, think going also in the direction of clothing as a service, letting people, repairing. I think repair, anyways, is a big topic that warrants a lot of discussion. Maybe not today, but it's where we can benefit the economy by giving repair services the right price. Employing people and also designing products in a way that so that can be repaired. I mean, I think in some other cases, for example, I mean, there was a company I worked with, Ferrero, that was more on the environmental side, on the social side, but I mean, there it was clearly media sort of bad publicity they got, right, in their hazelnut value chain and in other value chains, and so they just needed to invest. So that was a key driver. And sometimes what I find, there's also this struggle, particularly in the bigger companies, there's of course this struggle within the sort of the innovators, the sustainability leaders, and other parts of the company. So they constantly have to keep defending their point. Yeah, so they become these entrepreneurs almost. Yeah. Yeah, so I think these companies do exist, and it's good that there are labels such as the B Corp certificate, which makes it much easier for consumers to really navigate, navigate around in this jungle, right? Because we have 400 plus sustainability labels on products. Nobody knows really what's behind them, who checks it, and then there's all these self-created labels, right? Which companies now employ to pretend to be sustainable, but they're not. And this is greenwashing, of course. The one.
Yes, that one was one of. How do you distinguish one from the other? And I was going to ask that exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay. So how do you distinguish? I think, first of all, I think it's not the role of consumers, not the job of consumers to find out what's greenwashing and what's not. Yeah. There, I really see an important role for regulators, because as a consumer, you can't. And I mean, I also teach at the university. I teach business students to become aware of greenwashing, and so I challenge them on the Nobel Prize for Unsustainability and greenwashing, and then I ask them to pick out, the worst examples and the best examples. And fascinatingly enough, even though they've been sensitized and trained in that, they still find it super hard, and sometimes they bring best practice examples of sustainability that others bring as greenwashing examples. Yeah. So I mean, there are just so many very subtle forms of greenwashing, right? One product might be, more green, it might be green, it might be more ecological, organic, whatever. But then 99% of the company's product range is not, right? But they only advertise for the one product. That's just one other typical example, right? Mm-hmm. Or they completely, what do you call it? They completely distract from their core business, right? So Shell, I mean, I have no qualms about calling that out, because they talk about how much they, help little girls in schools and how they invest here and there. And this is sort of very minor projects, which might be great and they might be benefiting people, but they have nothing to do with their core business, right? And today, companies still get away with that. And that's why I think this taxonomy and other regulations are just really, really important.
I think you said something that is really important, and that's maybe a rule to distinguish if it has to do with the core business of the company or not. Their action, if it has an impact, but it has to do with their core business. Inês, what does the consumer, I think two questions here, what does the consumer in you demand from the other side of you as a government official? And maybe you'll tell me it's all the same person, fair enough. And may I ask you, what has been maybe the biggest change you've seen and that you influence towards a more mindful way of consuming coming from regulation? Does this make sense?
I would like to, on the wake of what Alice was saying, it was very curious to hear her talk about Dong Energy, because I studied Kalundborg, which is a very high regarded example of industrial symbiosis in Denmark. And I was very fortunate to be able to go there and talk to the managers at the time. This was back in 2007 or 8, perhaps. And it's curious to see or to wonder how much of being able to participate in that process of having a network between different types of economic activities within one area, to be able to talk freely about how can we improve our environmental performance together instead of doing it as a standalone issue. How far that interaction has been able to change the value frame of each CEO in those companies that were involved, in the sense that they recognize quicker that environmental challenges will be decisive to remain competitive in the future, and how that interaction has led to them working into stuff like Dong has said, that 90% of their businesses is now fossil fuel free, and that is one aspect of it. That's the scholar side of me in the previous life wondering about. And then in reaction to what you and Alice were talking about, regulation and the importance of regulation. First of all, I think it's important to say, I don't think that one person or entity has the power or more power to change everything. I always get a little bit concerned when I hear about this type of stance from people, because it's sort of reminiscent of some type of autocracy. If I'm able to, it's like there is one entity that mandates and rules overall, and I'm not comfortable with that area. But I do think that pushing the blame upwards or downwards, even upwards to government or downwards to the consumer, is basically delaying the actual change that you yourself as an individual or as an organization can do. It's just delaying stuff, or blaming other people for, I don't do that because they're not ordering me to. And that is true in a manner of instances. I've talked about this week about eco-design in LinkedIn, because there are so many simple stuff that products and companies can do, and some are already doing it, but like what Alice was saying, they're doing it to one product, they're not doing it to the range of all the other products that they sell. But they're doing it. There's not a mandate saying that, oh, you need to do that package like this, and like this. No, they're changing their business perspective. They're simply not doing it to the all of their value system. And very few companies are having that mindset of looking at their whole entirety of their value system in order to change it. So not just their businesses, but all the other businesses from which they depend. So I am a firm believer that change, actual change, is not something that is top down or bottom up. I've talked about it in my PhD in something I call the middle out. So the middle out is how we is how we promote change. So it's a place where you have an iterative relay and reaction to top-down directives and bottom-up responses, and that is how we interact those two flows of information, is how we can push forward. So the top influences the bottom and vice versa, and we are able to interact that. Of course, it all depends on, at least on government policies, which is my current area. It all depends then that those policies are, cohesive, that they are coordinated, that they are not going against each other, which is a big issue for me. So cohesive, coordinated, that they are participated, and they are developed based on, on data, on information, on our knowledge. And I have this feeling today that some policies and some areas are like driven on by the whim of opinions, and that cannot happen. We have to look at, when we talk about science, it's not some ethereal thing, no, there's data, there's information, there is accumulated knowledge that is verifiable, that is undeniable, and we have to work on that principle, and not just because some people or a particular group of people decide to say, well, that's not for me, you should do so and so and so. That is dangerous, and I think it leads policy development away from where it needs to be, into a realm of short-termism and volatility that we do not need at this point. We have a very challenging objectives from short term to medium term. We have a challenge right now in 2024. We need, in Portugal and in other EU members, we need to have bio-waste being collected separately. That's a huge challenge, huge, and it's for me, it's very harmful when we start diverting our objectivity into trying to address opinions. That is very, very hard for me. But having said that, I think that there are some issues which I find interesting, particular issues, like for instance in plastics. Something that we have been, challenging within the government. The minister is very adamant on that we have been, pushing to challenge governmental action since we started in 2015. And at the time, it was seen like a headache, it's very hard, very hard to do this. This is, people want their plastic bags, people want them to use as trash bags, and I've seen the curve of evolution within these 4 years about plastics, not only because of the EU directive, of course, but a lot of people show how easy it is, to just have that shifting that mind frame in order to reduce our plastic footprint. Of course, some people would say, well, they're not doing it out of goodwill. They're doing because there is an EU directive and there is penalties for you not doing that. Of course, but it's an evolution, and it's a very good one. At least if it helps to think in a very different way for other policies, I'm happy for it. So that is just a small example of how change can happen.
Talking about change, Nicole, two questions for you. You are a conscious consumer, I believe, and I've been reading some of your, well, I follow you, but of course I paid more attention these days. And one of the things you talk about that has been spoken about here, that is not about downgrading, quite on the contrary, it's about upgrading the way we live, and in a way that less is more. And so I ask you, what luxuries has a more simple life brought to your life as a consumer? And I believe that's what you demand of yourself, and also that's you as a consumer. And what do you demand of companies and of governments, or what do you expect rather than demand?
Well, I think a very special luxury we have, it's time to be present, time to be with people, and not to be working so hard, to have stuff. But being able to cook for my family, compost my food is really nice. And again, like I said before, I'm trying to have a more simple life, and simple in a way that connected with nature, connected with the time we're living right now. So what can I do to do that? What can I teach my kids, and what can I bring to the people that follow me, so we can think together? Yesterday or this week, I posted, my luxury 8 or 9 things that I think it's really special for me. And it was amazing how people reacted, because I only choose really simple things, and people were looking for, maybe they were looking for, oh my gosh, she's gonna, bring all these fantastic dreams. And no, I want to cook for my family. I want to go to the gym with my husband, and I want to, compost my food. So this is really about it. But as a consumer, and I also have a zero waste store, so I have this challenge to choose it's a collaborative store.
Collaboration. Yeah, you have another partner.
Yeah. No, but it's a market where we have
collaborative.
Yeah, it's a collaborative market. So we have to choose who are there, and really think about greenwashing and, everything. But every day we have the opportunity to talk to people that come in, and to show them ways where they can live a simple life and sustainable life. And every day I see like eyes, shining. Oh my gosh, really? So this, if I do this, I'm polluting. Yes. And you don't have to change everything, So every day I have this really awesome experience to seeing people coming in, and they just are curious. And here in Brazil, one of our challenges are a lot of policies that are not right, especially now with this pandemic we're living. So everything is harder. A lot of plastic, and because we have to make sure it's safe for everyone. But one of our challenges is to make easy for our collaborative companies to make their products, and they don't have to to prove, all of this stuff, so they can sell them. It's here in Brazil, we have it's really hard to do that. But like selling in bulk, we cannot do that with cleaning products. It's not permitted in Brazil, but we do. So in my store. So we are really talking to the government, I had the secretary coming there, when we talk, but it's not easy. We have to talk more and to think in a bigger way. I don't know if I...
But one of the things you were also sharing recently is about this idea of, as consumers, we vote in every single decision. Can you share a little bit, how do you think we vote every day? How do you think, in any way, it's collaborating as well?
Yeah, we are voting all the time. We are choosing, like Alice said, if we are giving money, not money, but if we are choosing these greenwashing huge companies, I have a local market, so I always talk about choose local, choose organic if you can. So we are voting all the time. We are saying to when we choose, we are saying go on. When we buy this, I say go on. You can build more. You can make more. Or if I can send an email. I send lots of emails. I love your product, I love your company, but can you change this? Can you do this? And this is the kind of thing I say to my followers. Talk to the companies. Send emails, call them. Because sometimes they're in the right path, but they have changes to make. And this is a really important question I have to, if I can ask Alice, because the bigger companies, they have to start in some way, even though their core are not right. They have to choose, where do I start? So this is something I always talk, because sometimes I'm asked that this huge company, they come to me and they want me to do something for them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is it right? Because they're not right, but they want to do it. So it's always tricky, and I have to really be concerning.
Should I respond to that? Because I know we have only a few minutes left, but then we were given some extra time. Should we take some extra time? Is that okay for everyone?
Yes, we can take some extra time, yes. If you don't have to go home for lunch, which I know Inês had more strict schedule, but just a little bit, at least, so we can, after you, will just answer a more final question.
Okay.
Okay, great. So Nicole, I think this is a really good question, and I'm really glad you're asking it, and I'm really glad also you're thinking about that, right? Because I think a lot of people would just be easily fooled, so to speak, and just go with it, go with companies suggesting whatever. And one of the questions I actually had, which I can ask you later, maybe even separately, is like, where do you draw the line, right? That was going to be one of the questions I have, like, as an influencer, you are, I guess you get a lot of offers for promotion. So yeah, great you raised this. I find, even I, right, and I call myself a sustainability expert, find it very hard, right? When you have large companies, huge power imbalance, right? coming to me and my colleagues, and we're small, it's almost impossible to really do a proper due diligence, right? But there are quite a lot of ratings and rankings and labels that give you a good hint. Yeah, I think one thing, because I also have a few NGO hats, and one of them is Protect Our Winters. Yeah, this is about protecting the climate for the sake of protecting people's ability to continue winter sports like snowboarding. It's an interesting one, right? Because we talk about how to convince people, and this is again like showing people what's in it for them. Yeah, and these sort of snowboarders, skiers, mountaineers, they care about the mountains, and so we say to them, well, if you care about the mountains, protect the climate. And so it's an interesting target group. Anyway, so we also get a lot of requests by companies who want to partner, and it's basically, I think, one of the besides trying to find out, of course, as much as I can about the company, and just trying to read through how they're addressing the issues that are material in their industry, right? So if it's an oil company, and you may want to say, don't work with fossil fuel, and I think that's would be a very good stance to take as well, because it's a slippery slope, right? But I think would be to ask, are they addressing the main so-called material issues? Like, just look at the website. Are they actually talking about this, or are they presenting themselves almost like an NGO, right? Because if they do that, you already get a feeling that the company isn't really trying to change what it's, how it's doing business. I mean, personally, I would probably just not work. There are several industries I just not work with, or if I work with them, I'd work, with a branch or part of them that has a very different mindset. But again, this is not always easy to ascertain. Sometimes, we do impact assessments. So we try to really understand what a corporate's impact is on the social side and on the environmental side. And on the environmental side, which I guess we're talking mostly about today, I mean, you could, for example, check, have they signed up to the so-called science-based targets? Yeah, that's a system basically that allows companies that are keen to lower their carbon footprint, their CO2 footprint, to set targets that are quite ambitious, that are in line with the Paris Agreement goals. Yeah, so that's just one indicator, right? Or are they a B Corp? Yes, but then I think another really important thing is, what are they willing to give? Yeah, so that's to sort of conclude that answer is I talked about what do we do with Protect Our Winters. Do they have skin in the game? Yeah, or are they just trying to get something from you without you or the greater public getting anything from them, right? So if they have, of course, it depends on the size of the company, but if they have no sustainability department or sustainability people just under the public relations or marketing, right? Then you already get a feeling they might not take that so seriously, right? If they don't have a proper budget for that, if they don't understand the business opportunities, if they see the opportunities just from a marketing point of view, and you're talking to the marketing people, then chances are that might be an issue. But if they have senior leadership, maybe a chief sustainability officer, someone who can really with power inside that business, then I think it's a different story. And also look at how transparent are they in admitting the challenges, because it's challenging for every company. Companies aren't NGOs. If they're transparent, if they admit to those, I think you have an indicator that they're reasonably serious about that. So I think these are exactly the questions that a lot of even like investment banks are at the moment struggling with, right? Because there's so much demand for green investments, for what they call ESG investments, right? That, of course, this demand is being fulfilled by banks, by investment houses. But they give away this green label, this ESG label way too easily. And there was a recent scandal, and I'm mentioning it, the Dws scandal, where a whistleblower, so there was this lady employed, things happened. She was made redundant, or she quit. I don't even know exactly how it went. But the point is, she then alerted the public to the fact that the green investments weren't really as green as the company was claiming. And this caused the shares to really decrease, sort of share price to really decrease by 15% or so. It caused a public inquiry, and so again, they understood that this is actually really risky. So this greenwashing is risky. And of course, you as an influencer, you can influence those companies as well, right? You can also work to just really ask the hard questions. Yeah, and then just one other thing on that, because you mentioned also you're writing, you're emailing companies, and again, my Claudia Winkler, my co-author, she runs this company called Good Mobile. Yeah, it's supposed to be like a sustainable alternative to regular mobile companies, and they're quite big in Germany, and they're also in Austria, where we are based. And she said they really try to do things right from the start, but it was so hard for them. And then they got lots of very critical feedback, sort of negative feedback, from consumers. I don't know, maybe even from other parts of civil society. And she said that was so demotivating, right? Because they were trying hard, and yes, everything not everything was perfect, but the fact that they were getting this negative feedback, when they were at an early stage, they were not yet sustainability experts. So her message sometimes is, well, don't be too critical. We argue about that, right? So it's a fruitful argument, because I said no. I mean, large companies in particular, you just need to question, and really dig deeper, and they need to feel the pressure. That's really what I think. And if they are like-minded, if they are sustainability minded, they're gonna welcome that pressure, because they will realize it will make it easier to sort of defend sustainable transformation among their different stakeholders.
Alice, thank you. I think let's pretend this is a brainstorming session, and picking up on something to wrap it up, because otherwise, at least Inês will definitely kill me. And to try to wrap it up, and taking into account something that Inês said, it's not bottom up, it's not top down, it's in the middle. And that's why we have in this table 3 completely different stakeholders. So imagine that we were building a 1-slide presentation with bullet points, with 5 bullet points, to think out how these three stakeholders can work together. And we've seen, and I ask you to interrupt me and just build as a takeaway message for our audience, okay? How do you say? I'm not rehearsed. This is not rehearsed. This is just, as we go along, just try to wrap it up. So we need to have empathy and put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And this can be a company, taking into account, for example, that a value chain does not change from one day to the other. It might be a consumer, as Nicole said, and so well, that she speaks with people that never had a chance to buy, or hardly have a chance to buy a new piece of clothes. And there she is saying, and I would say the same, that for them to go and buy secondhand. And here he is struggling every day with a huge clash in terms of people that, yes, they're going there in terms of mindset, but that have so many interests and so many priorities to think. So help me out in building a final message of 3 stakeholders working together. Okay, empathy, start where you are. Come on, interrupt me, please, just to dig deeper when it comes to companies. Dig deeper. I think that's another message. Maybe
create
not
win-wins.
Sorry?
I think create win-wins, right? So try to multi-solve. Try to find those solutions that benefit both the environment and humans, right? So I don't know.
Start small if you need. Ellen MacArthur talks about it a lot. Maybe it's not the message that gets through often, but I firmly believe that. We talk about big decisions versus small decisions, and people pit against each other saying, well, it's not the plastic straw, it's leaving fossil fuels that matters. And other people saying, no, the small action, actually, it all matters, small and big. So when you're a country, even from personal issue to a company, start small. It can be something as simple as putting recycling bins in every bit of the office, and then tracking what happens in terms of separation? What are the issues that are, you know, demanding questions from their employees? It can start something as simple as that, as a program of asking employees for input in terms of how can we do better within our office, for example. It can start like that. And then when that succeeds, and it will, it starts, okay, so we have covered that. So maybe we can put the same thought going into other areas. And that is the same for even for if you're a family. And I think Alice talked about it. You start, you know, she started with a very practical issue, you know, when with her baby, and then it kind of escalated to all the other areas. And there are a lot of Portuguese influencers that have experienced the same trajectory, and they started small with a particular issue, and now they have gone into, you know, looking into what is the best, the more sustainable project that they can visit in the summer for holidays, for example. I don't know, but that is the same thing with companies, with governments even. You know, you start with a small project and then you go from there and you try to escalate. Of course, you know, people will say, well, that's not quick enough. There's not anything that it's quick enough right now. I mean, we just have to do, if we have to stop debating that what is quicker, what is that is quick, that is long, that takes a long time. That no, you just have to start now. Do not think about, you know, what went in the past. Don't, you know, reach a degree of anxiety about the future that leaves you paralyzed. No, you just have to, you start to have to talk, to have the conversation, to do the work. You just have to start somewhere. Start something in which you are passionate about. How can you transform your hobby into something which is more sustainable, for example, if you want to go that way? And companies can have the same mindset if they want. I know that it's tough on a day-to-day basis. We talked about, you know, having to make ends meet and being worried about that, so you don't have time to think about anything else. And that is true for a lot of companies. They're worrying about how am I going to pay my employees? How am I going to pay my bills? I know that. So that's why you need to perhaps in that respect start small, you know, come from within, maybe from with your employees, you know, nitpick their minds, do brainstorming inside, you know. I mean, I think those are, you know, simple, not costly things that you can do in order to improve, to start doing that work. And I think that is what we are trying to do within government as well. And I think that is a very simple, very, you know, call me naive, but I think it's a very simple, you know, free of charge way of doing that.
And it's low-hanging fruit as well.
Yeah, the low-hanging fruits. I mean, you have to start somewhere.
And progress is more important.
And then multiply it.
Perfection. Yeah. Let's action instead of perfection. Alice and Nicole, final words.
I agree with that. And I really believe that one sustainable change will call the other one, you know? Yeah, it's like that.
Alice?
Yeah, no, I think the time for action is not now, but yesterday. And we need to be hugely ambitious. We really need to completely rethink you know, what we've done and how we've done it. So I think we need to be brave in a way, and really create those win-wins, because they're there. And in the end, we need to understand that climate action, if we stick with that, is in our own self-interest. I really think this is important. It's not about altruism. A lot of people can be moved by that. It's in our own self-interest to basically enable the planet to survive.
And to add on that, it starts with each one of us, not in the other government, in the company. It starts in each one of us. So I know we could go on speaking for ages, but we can't. I wish. I do appreciate it. I'm so grateful that each of you from different parts of the world, different walks of life, accepted my invitation and trusted me on this one, because I didn't know any of you except being a follower of yours. You've never heard of me almost. I do have to thank another woman, because without her, I would not be here today. Her name is Eunice. Nicole knows her, and I'm sure Inês knows her. She's the founder of Maria Granel. She changed the course of my life and made me and put me the sustainability in the sustainability path. So, and again, thank you for Green Pass for giving us this stage and being able to collaborate towards a brighter future. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for reaching out. Bye, and good to meet everyone here. We'll be in touch.